A lot of people in the Adventure Time community think that Princess Bubblegum is a dictator, and technically she is. I mean, there's no really denying that. She literally runs a surveillance state, creates life to serve her, and intentionally made her citizens simple-minded. But here's the thing, it's actually not her fault. She's a victim. But before I get to that, let's talk about what Princess Bubblegum actually does that, by definition, makes her a dictator. She doesn't just have cameras throughout the Candy Kingdom, she implants tracking chips in every single citizen. She can monitor their location and listen to their conversations on her computer at any time. It's not just surveillance, it's total bodily control of her subjects. She locks Flame Princess in a lantern as a baby, a literal infant, and agrees with the Flame King to keep her there for 15 years because she deemed her too dangerous, a child imprisoned for being born wrong. She creates sentient beings like the James clones, specifically to serve as soldiers, and when one of them needs to be sacrificed to save the others from the oozers, she doesn't hesitate. She sends 3 kids from the notorious pup gang to live with Lemongrab as a political solution, knowing full well that he's unstable. Sure enough, when Finn and Jake find them, they're locked in a room, being continuously electrocuted as punishment when the Lemongrabs get out of control. She erases the Candy Life formula from their minds, straight up memory alteration, mind wiping if you will. Not only that, but she created Lemongrab in the first place, her first experiment gone wrong, and then shipped him off as a baby to Castle Lemongrab to live an isolated, sheltered life alone. She created a son, realized he was defective, and exiled him. Her castle has dungeons with skeletons literally cuffed to the walls. When Ice King accidentally infects the kingdom with freezer burn flu and won't help cure it, she's willing to torture him by kidnapping him and making him scream, and she doesn't hesitate. Finn has to call her out for it before she realizes it's wrong. She launches a missile into space to cultivate a backup Candy Kingdom, but the missile tears through alien bodies, mutilating them. She's randomly shown cutting the limbs off of tiny round creatures with scissors and reattaching them in different places for experiments. She destroyed the Rattleballs, an entire species that she created because they were too good at fighting and she deemed them a threat. She spies on Flame Princess for research because she sees her as a threat still, but this next part is probably the most crucial piece of evidence. She intentionally engineered the Candy people to be simple-minded and docile. She admits this.
But they do seem happier now. So unburdened and pliable. You, the crunchy ball, dance for me!
After Gumbald's betrayal, she made a choice. Create subjects who can't think well enough to betray her. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a side effect. She designed an entire species to be easy to control. And Tree Trunks calls her out by calling her fascist directly to her face. And she is, by every definition. Princess Bubblegum is running an authoritarian surveillance state. So technically, PB is absolutely running a dictatorship. But here's what broke her. She wasn't always like this. 800 years before the show, Princess Bubblegum emerged from the Mother Gum as essentially a child. She had to learn how to think, feel, and be independent from scratch. She was alone in a post-apocalyptic wasteland with only her brother Nettie, who couldn't even speak to her. The loneliness was crushing, so she did what any lonely child would do. She tried to make a family. She created Uncle Gumbald, Aunt Lolly, and Cousin Chicle, and she had specific plans for each of them. She designed them to fit particular archetypes so they could have family dynamics together. She was literally trying to engineer herself out of loneliness. And at first, it seemed like it worked. But then Gumbald wanted to build a candy city. Not just any city. He had plans for where everything would go, how it would function. And when Bonnabelle disagreed with his vision and created Lake Butterscotch, where he wanted to put apartments, something shifted. Gumbald didn't see her as family anymore. He saw her as an obstacle. So he created something called Dum Dum Juice. This wasn't just any potion. It was designed specifically to turn Princess Bubblegum into a docile and simple-minded candy subject. Her own uncle, her own creation, invented a serum to chemically lobotomize her. He wanted to turn her into an obedient, simple creature so he could take over the family, and he very nearly succeeded. During a date she went on with Mr. Cream Puff, another one of Gumbald's creations used to distract her, Gumbald fed the Dum Dum Juice to Lolly and Chicle, and it worked instantly. They transformed into cheerful, simple-minded versions of themselves. Happy, obedient, but empty. When Bonnabelle came back, Gumbald tried to do the same to her. She only survived by accident. The serum spilled on his face instead, turning him into a punch bowl. And then she made a decision that would define the next 800 years of her life. She looked at Gumbald, Lolly, and Chicle in their new simple-minded forms and decided to leave them that way. She said that they seemed happier in their simple-minded and obedient new forms and declared herself as their princess.
Call me Princess.
From that moment on, she made every single candy person simple-minded on purpose because her family, the people she created out of loneliness to love her, had tried to lobotomize her the second she disagreed with them. She didn't become paranoid for no reason. Her own family betrayed her. But this is why it's so tragic. She knows it was wrong. She regrets it, but she's trapped anyway.
I'm just a person.
I've done things in the past. Things I'm not proud of.
And the worst part of all this is that they proved her wrong. Many of the candy people turned out to be surprisingly smart and defied her more questionable actions anyway. They weren't as simple as she designed them to be. They could think, they could disagree, which means she traumatized herself and created a dictatorship for nothing. She built a prison to protect herself from a threat that never materialized. But once the surveillance state exists, once the control mechanisms are in place, once you've implanted tracking chips in everyone, once you've assigned everyone their function, once you've built the dungeons and the banana guards and the Gumbald guardians, how do you stop? How do you give that up when you've spent 800 years believing it's the only thing keeping everyone safe? After she gets turned back into a teenager and then restored to 18, something changes in her. She doesn't become less controlling. She becomes more controlling. She creates a Goliath, a Sphinx clone of herself, because she's terrified of dying and leaving the Candy Kingdom vulnerable. Because nearly dying showed her just how fragile everything is. It confirmed every paranoid thought she'd ever had. When she was 13, she tells Finn that being that age was
Bloobalooby!
it was freedom. Being 18 was
Plop dumps and waggle sags.
she felt the weight of responsibility lifted for just a moment, and then it came crashing back down. Every single time she tries to give the candy people independence, every time she tries to trust them, it fails. She loses the election to the King of Oo because she thought they were smart enough to see through him. They weren't. She thought they knew she loved them. They voted for a con man anyway. Even when she tries to trust them to make good decisions, they prove they need her, and she made them that way. She engineered them to need her. She built a prison of her own design. She can't undo making them simple. She can't stop protecting them. And every time she tries to trust them to be independent, they prove they still need her control, which ends up revealing the darkest truth. Princess Bubblegum isn't a leader who became corrupt. She's a traumatized child that never got to grow up. She emerged from the Mother Gum, having to learn to think, feel, and be independent from nothing. No parents, no teachers, no model for healthy relationships, just a radioactive wasteland and a brother who couldn't speak. For 800 years, she filled the perfection role, organizing 1,000 things at once, keeping a stable head, locking down her own problems. None of this should be handled alone regardless of how mature or mentally strong the individual is, but she does it alone anyway, because who was there to teach her differently? Her coping mechanism under extreme stress eating. After 8 centuries, she still responds like a child. She views everything through a scientific lens because emotions failed her with Gumball. Logic became her shield. Plans became her armor. Control became safety. And when those plans fail, when she can't open the musical door in What Was Missing, when she loses to the King of Oo, her insecurity reaches its peak. In the episode of Varmints, she finally breaks down in tears of sheer struggle, exhaustion, and realization that she cannot manage her dilemma and be okay. For the first time in literal centuries, she admits the weight is too much. And this is what makes Princess Bubblegum's story the show's most devastating exploration of power and trauma. She made one decision at her most vulnerable moment, right after her family's betrayal, and it defined 800 years. That scared, lonely child's choice became the foundation of a dictatorship. Her actions are motivated by her desire to protect. The surveillance, the tracking chips, the mind wiping, all of it comes from desperate love because no one ever protected her. But who was supposed to tell a traumatized child that lobotomizing people to prevent betrayal was wrong? She needed help, support, someone to say it was okay to not be perfect. Instead, she got centuries of isolation. That's why Marceline matters. She's the only one who remembers when they told jokes for hours in the crystal mines before Bubblegum got too busy with princess business. Marceline doesn't need her perfect. With Marceline, she can finally stop managing every disaster by herself. What happens when someone who never learned healthy love tries to create a family? When a child becomes parent to an entire kingdom before learning how to be either? She's the girl who emerged desperate for connection and the ruler who can't afford vulnerability. She's the scared kid who made one choice and the immortal still imprisoned by it. The tracking chips, the torture, the wars, none of it was right. But she's not evil. She's someone handed impossible choices at an impossible age, still living in that moment of trauma 800 years later. Princess Bubblegum's dictatorship isn't her fault. She made one terrified decision after her family tried to lobotomize her, and she never escaped it. Trying to be perfect, control everything, protect everyone, because no one ever protected her. She didn't need to be a better leader. She needed to be a kid, and she never got to be one. The real villain isn't Princess Bubblegum. It's the loneliness that shaped her.